Hello and welcome
to the Heinun Couples Podcast,
where we empower blessed couples
to deepen the love, fostering mutual pleasure, connection, and joy.
So let's dive in.
Welcome to the Heinun Couples Podcast.
In today's episode, we are joined by Maike and Henrique, an international couple who brings warmth, honesty, and lots of laughter into the conversation around intimacy in marriage.
Maike, originally from Germany, is in her final year of physiotherapy training, and Henrique from Brazil is studying IT. They received the blessing in 2020 and now live together in Germany.
In this episode, they open up about how the book Sheet Music, Uncovering the Secrets of Sexual Intimacy in Marriage by Dr. Kevin Leman helped them to prepare for and grow within their sexual relationship.
From navigating their long-distance relationship to learning how to communicate desires and boundaries with grace and humor, they share practical takeaways and vulnerable insights every couple can relate to.
Whether you're preparing for the first night or years into your marriage, this episode is full of wisdom, real talk, and inspiration to bring more understanding, connection, and joy into your intimate life. So enjoy. Hi, Maike. Hi, Henrique. So nice to have you here with us. Thank you so much for taking the time, especially on the weekend.
Thank you for inviting us.
Today we're gonna talk about the book Sheet Music, and we're really curious on hearing what led you to pick up that specific book and what is it actually about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it was my mom actually who gave us that book.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it was right before the blessing, basically. And it was at a time where you had this attraction phase, and it wasn't like a brother-sister relationship anymore, but you weren't supposed to be sexual or
more intimate with each other. Yeah.
And so right before the blessing or right after the blessing, especially in that 40-day period where it's you're very attracted, she kind of gave that to us to have a filter, I think, for that energy, but in a very positive way, and to kind of prepare us for sexual intimacy.
Ah, that's really nice. Especially, I feel like at least for me, I would not talk with my parents about sex before. Now after the blessing, it feels more natural and it feels more okay. But before, that's nice to have that you have a relationship like that with your mother, that you can talk about that.
We both had that. I think that was a very good thing.
Yeah, it was nice as well that I think coming from your mom, we each one had one copy of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I took mine to Brazil, and we were reading in a distant relationship, but I had my copy and she had her copy, and we actually went back and forth in reading this during the 40 days.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice. That's really nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so when reading those books, was there anything that the author really, where you felt he speaks in a very interesting way to you? Like Dr. Leman, he is the author, right? Is there a specific way how he speaks that is interesting to you?
I think I can go on that. It's for me, I remember that it was very good, the read with Maike. I had like a bit of a different background as her, one coming to the book itself. But I felt like it was a good way of organizing our conversations about sexuality and sensuality and like our bodies and how we felt about each other as partner. And because that was like a central point for both of us, I felt like she was more relaxed. I was then more relaxed because she was relaxed, so I felt free on talking on the topics that I wanted to. And because of that, I felt like it was really worth it for both of us.
I think what I love about this book is that it's very good for virgins. Because I think he's not from our church, like he's Christian, his background is Christian, but he talks very personally about his first night with his wife, how he has had these huge expectations and they were crushed in this hotel in the middle of the rain, where it was very cringe, his first time, basically. And so he's super honest about his experience with his wife. And so even though it's coming from a male perspective, he puts in this female and male perspective. And so I think I was surprised about that. It was very much so the first part of the book is
For both.
for both before the first night. And we were only supposed to read it until the first night first. So you're not overwhelmed with everything. And it's talking about like just for the men to read about the woman. And then the other part is just for the woman to read about the men before the first night. So you're prepared in a very nice way about what is sex. And I think a huge part for me and for both of us was how he talked about the rule book of intimacy. So that's something very interesting that he talked about, what we didn't think about. And it's talking about how does your ancestors and your family, especially your family, and how they looked at intimacy affects your sexual relationship before you go into the first night, basically. And he calls that the crowded bed. You're not just having sex with your husband, you're also having sex with your mother-in-law, in a way. Like it's
in a way.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You know, how she was showing intimacy with her husband and how my mom showed intimacy to my dad, and what we saw and experienced with that. So that's something that was very important for me. Like I have this thing that a rule book that I had with many girls, and what other girls told me, like just an idea of what that could look like, was I thought sex is this great thing, but now I had it and it's actually not that great. I'd never had an orgasm and I'm pretty disappointed. And so that was one rule book, is I thought it's great, just great all the time and very easy. And then another one was, I think men should always initiate sex. And I had another girl and a friend of mine that said, oh, sex was always taboo and dirty. And now I'm in this relationship and suddenly it's supposed to be something holy. And so...
on the guy sides as well, is like, I think for many, they had difficulty with like highs and lows of libido. Basically, it's just the guy feeling extremely attracted to her, to his partner in the moment, and because of this or other reasons, it wasn't possible. So how to deal with that stress and how to deal with that emotional response to it. But also when you're feeling very low and you feel like this way that you have to perform very much better, like you have to be better, you have to perform, you always have to be ready. So the guys, when they have a low libido and they were confronted with, oh yeah, my partner wants to be intimate right now and I'm not feeling like it, but I have to pressure myself because I always have to be ready, you know. So I heard of guys doing like that. I experienced that sometimes as well. So I feel that is like very general. I think that goes for many guys as well.
Come back to your question, I think that's what was the most interesting for us, is to realize that we both have a rule book and that you first really should talk about this before you have your first time, basically. And even if the one is like, I'm super pure, I never had any contact with any sexual content, and the other one, and I think for you it was like that.
You really helped me self-reflect as well.
About like your history with pornography and watching that, and me not knowing anything, and I'm like, so different rule books very much. So that was very interesting.
And so that helped you then kind of coming on the same page to understand each other, where you're coming from, but also what was your understanding. And so that's actually really good. Especially now, like there's a lot of couples that been on the blessing. So that's really good for them also to understand. But also for us, actually. Even longer, you know. If someone grew up in our movement of, as you said, having a background where you never talked about sex, or you never saw how loving the relationship is in between your parents, how they show affection or whatever, then where it's not natural. You're blessed, and you have sex, you have children, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's great or that you understand oneself. It's like, oh, okay, what is actually my rule book? Even after a few years of being in a relationship, same as understanding the partner's rule book as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what a rule is that I have for a long time. I think a part of it is who is initiating? Like, I think there is this rule book that I thought, he's going to initiate. Like, he's the guy.
Yeah.
So that is a rule that I think I had subconsciously. And I had to realize, no, why? I can just as much initiate. Why does that make him less male and me, I don't know, like
less female or less
female?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Even like he talks very, very, very openly and honestly and specifically, like, the guy always has to be on top, or I never would want oral sex. It's you. You know, I think those kind of things, I never had those, I think. But I think in this specific beginning, you think, I think I have one actually, when we had our first night. And I thought I'm very sensual and I need a lot of preparation. And so I know in the first night, I prepared like hundreds of candlelights and
the rose petals
and music, everything that makes it sensual, and had everything prepared. We were showered, everything was clean, and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't.
We were both way too nervous.
And I noticed, I think I need a little bit of spontaneity. Like I was right in front of my period. I wasn't really in the mood, but I thought now has to be the time where I'm ready. So I think, especially if you don't have any concept about sexuality, I think trying it out and having grace and having fun.
This was like planning. It was something that I noticed in my rule book, is that for me this didn't work at all. Like planning when we can be intimate. I think I feel more free initiating, but when we can be spontaneous about it, I feel that we are much more successful. I think we feel it much better.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you guys have like a rule that you can think of now? Would be interesting.
I start now to more understand the concept of the rule book. I guess for us it's definitely easier to do the schedule. Usually because I'm usually not that spontaneous. I guess this is one of my rules. I'm not so spontaneous. Just if I know we're gonna be intimate, then I can prepare my head for it. So because when I'm kind of in my head on, okay, I have to do this, I have to do that, and then I have to prepare this kind of video, I have to do this. So a lot of things in my head, then I cannot switch easily my head off. And if I know, okay, we're gonna do it maybe in 2 hours, or when we come back from the grocery shopping or whatever, I'm mentally prepared. And especially I like it really in the evening because I can just fall asleep afterwards. And afterwards. Basti, you're kind of more in the morning, right? You like...
Yeah, well, sometimes I wake up and I'm like, we're both naked, we're next to each other. It's so nice to start the day. Then Daria's like, no.
Yes, that's a big one.
Yeah.
You're definitely the morning person, and she's not, right? Like you wake up early.
I'm a more morning person, but not a morning sex person.
Okay. Yeah.
Difference. But yeah, I remember sometimes in the evenings when either me or Daria are in the mood, but the other person isn't, then we're like, okay, then next morning. And then that's like the compromise, that we don't have to wait. Like, okay, maybe it will happen next day, maybe it won't. And it's like, wake up. It's just like 8 hours later. Yeah, that's always like, for us, I love that. When we talk about like, okay, man, we're too tired. It could work, but actually tomorrow morning would be just much nicer. We have time and
more rested.
Yeah. So actually we are on the topic of my next question, which is, how did the book help you guys to find like to know what the other person needs. And I guess talking about those rules, you guys talk more openly about what the other person needs, and you understand that it's very individual. It's not like a given.
Yeah.
What you want is automatically what the other person thinks would be all right. And so is there maybe another example? I mean, you talked about like oral sex. Maybe there's another example where, one of you has let's say a fantasy or a desire to try something, and the other person is like, where did that come from? Like, I had never heard that anywhere. Is there anything that popped up just listening to the book and you started a conversation about that?
I mean, we had a couple of things, but I can remember something specifically. Do you remember something specific?
I think something that came up very much is actually what you kind of talked about. It's a one chapter quite in the back. So anyone that is now a little bit, what the heck is Dr. Leman talking about? It's more in the end. He talks very beautifully about everything. And then, but later on, I think he talks about using sex tools or anal sex. And I don't want to be too specific. I think he's very clear about that and what are the disadvantages of that, which is very great, but they are very specific. And it was something that I think you need to talk about very much in the beginning and set clear what your boundaries are. And I think that was something we definitely had to clear up from the very beginning. Also, if you're more the sensual type, or if you're a bit like you're more adventurous and you want to try new things, I think we noticed a little bit how I think that came with time. I think I didn't know what kind of type I was in the beginning, but I think now later on that's something that we keep talking about. Is like, oh, is there something new that you want to try and talk about?
Yeah.
I think, or a topic that came up a lot in our relationship was long distance relationship and sex. What about phone sex or sending pictures to each other? And so I think everybody has to decide that very specifically for themselves as a couple. And if both are okay, it's all fine. And that's what Kevin Leman says. It just becomes an issue if one really wants it and is pressuring the other to do something that they are not good about, that not feeling good about. I think for me, it was very much like I didn't want phone sex. I just found it, I just couldn't get into it. And so I think we had to talk about this because we had years of long distance and you have to kind of figure out what works best. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's what I got from that conversation itself was that it's an ongoing process. I think it's not to just stop or just this one conversation and then okay, you know how your partner is. But for me was like, oh yeah, we eventually we have this conversation again. And so how are you feeling about sex, and how are we feeling about sex right now? Is it good in the frequency of it, or like how are we feeling with each other, and how tired are we, or should we try something else different? I think something that I noticed was like just being more playful with clothing and buying, lingerie and then together. And for me, having a specific smell or perfume that she would like very much, and or clothes that she would like very much. So I think that was really something that we developed with time.
Yeah, and Kevin Leman, he talks a lot about very concrete things, what you can do to spice up your relationship, because eventually you just want to serve each other.
Yeah.
You are not, I think there's a lot of shame, especially in a religious background, and he talks about that as well when it comes to trying things out. But in the end, it's all about you love the other person. So if that person is okay with that, is that okay for you too? If it's blocking you, why is it blocking you? Then thinking again, if it's really a block and you cannot do anything about it, the other one has to kind of figure out, okay, I can accept that. It's your rule book. And I think, he talks about very specific things in that regard. It's very good.
Yeah, that's a important point. Like, you love each other, you're doing it for each other, because sex is something you do for each other, not just like that. I'm gonna have an orgasm and he kind of, if I'm, it's done. We don't. We can. It's okay to stop. You know. But rather than it's like, it's something we have sex for each other rather than us. Also, I mean, from our background, is our sexual organs are for each other.
Yeah.
And so to support each other, to love each other, and this is also where God is. So this is a good point.
Yeah, I think one thing that I want to add is maybe to get a little bit that I can read, like a tiny bit of the book that I find is very interesting to get a feeling for the book and how it's written. It's a chapter that we both really liked, but especially for me, it was very good to know. And I had a lot of conversations with other women that it kind of was difficult for them. Like, it built a lot of, I don't know. And that was the chapter Too Pooped to Whoop, it's called. So if you're feeling too tired for sex. And so he says, like, about the commitment for each other. And I'm just going to read it. And what kind of attitude you should have when it comes to marriage. When you agree to marry this man or this woman, you put yourself in a position to meet a need in his or her life that no other person can legitimately meet: sexual fulfillment. I'm blonde with marital couples. If you are not willing to commit yourself to having sex with this person 2 or 3 times a week for the rest of your life, don't get married. Certainly, pregnancies and sickness and few other unforeseen problems will alter this, but in general, to get married is to commit to a regular time of sexual intimacy. This means that not being in the mood is an interesting sidelight, but it should never determine your actions. You made a commitment, and you'll need to be faithful to that commitment. It's too late to undo it now. It goes both ways, of course. I tell men that to get married is to commit to regular times of communication. I've never met a man who told me, what I really need after spending a long day of work is a good 45-minute talk with my wife. But I tell men that if their wife needs that 45-minute conversation, they need to work at providing it. But how, Dr. Leman? How can I participate sexually without any real desire? I'm glad you asked. And then he basically talks about how can you actually help that feeling of lacking desire. Because it's going to come at one point where you're like, I'm not feeling it. It's okay, you can do it, but don't ask me. Maybe I can get into it or not. And for me, it was really good because I noticed every time that I didn't feel so much, eventually when we got started, it's just a matter of time. And I got into it, you know, it's just as much as he did when I wanted it very much. And he's like, oh, I'm not sure if I can. And then I'm like, all right, try me. Try out what you can do. And then it's more of a challenge to please each other. And if we can convince each other that it's going to work, that was a big thing.
Yeah, that's, I think, as you said before, for a lot of women, it's actually something that's, I'm not in the mood or not feeling like it, but
I got a headache.
It's not my excuse.
I have to say that this with the headache affects me sometimes as well.
Yeah.
Like not always. Like I think I'm still the one who initiates more. But like when I have I'm not the one who have headaches. But when I have, it's really like today is not happening. Yeah.
Usually he says, you know what helps with that?
Exactly. If you're having a period, actually. Oh, that's also a rule. During your period, you cannot have sex. Many have that, but biologically speaking, it can also help reduce pain. I mean, that's the thing you have to talk about with your husband. If
Right.
That's okay. So, but yeah, he talks about the biggest enemy for a good sex life. And so for women, that's a little bit something else than for men. Can, of course, switch as well. But for the women, it's tiredness, stress, being overworked, not feeling love, and feeling like you're being seen very much. And so that's something that the man has to do. I think female fantasies, what he talks about is very much about the man taking care of the household and everything's ready. And then she is ready to do whatever he wants. And then for men, many times, I think he talks about lacking sexual interest. That's very hard to accept. Not being respected for what you do in your household and lacking imagination. I don't know if you want to add anything. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the when we had some arguments or we still needed to work on something, and then it was more difficult to get into intimacy again.
Yeah, we
Like
cannot
just
do it.
yeah. So it really needed to do with like feeling respected again, or feeling like understood again, or feeling like we are in the same level again.
Like the connection
Reestablished.
Yeah, exactly. The connection was reestablished.
Yeah.
And then you have like makeup sex when you actually celebrate.
Celebrate the reconnection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's not going to get any easier. I mean, we don't have kids yet. Whew, as soon as you have kids and you're being so tired, and then in the end you still want to make that happen. Oh, I mean, that needs another level of commitment. I think then you're even more pooped to whoop. So I'm curious how that will change everything again.
So was there any, you've talked about different things now, but were there any practical tips that you tried that made a difference in your intimacy with each other?
I think I can go that really quickly. Yeah, for me was to really understand how preparing the whole other part of the day, like I think for men is very much we come back from work and we see our wives, and like we have this instinct of, oh, I just want to be affectionate, or we want to get together and be close, show our affection and love. But if there's nothing the whole rest of the day, there is no other message, or there was no other connection. I think there was a point that I really learned from it, is just like bring those moments of how you're doing, how was your day specifically, or are you working on something right now? Are you stressed on something right now? And really just make you feel, I think, more heard, and I think more relaxed on everything else besides just the bed. I think to prepared on like mentally, and I think the biggest thing is for me, sensuality has to do with the senses and not with sex per se, So it's really much about like, how are you feeling? How are you smelling? And how you're prepared for it today? Are you actually wanting it to talk about something first? Like you want to, I don't know, Mike was feeling stressed from coming from this group therapy, and then you just want to talk about it, or like you were very excited about it and you wanted to kind of go about it before, or just touch base with your mom first. So I think that was like really, for me, really practical on just, I think touching base, just sending a message, saying hello, not just really trying to connect from like the first point of conversation would be sex in the day. I think that was for me very practical.
Yeah, that actually sounds really good. Like kind of giving her the opportunity to unload whatever is kind of in the mind. And either sharing the excitement, but also or sharing the load that kind of either turns down, or kind of whatever.
I mean, it could be something stressful that happened, and if you just listen to it, it feels like I don't have to carry it all by myself. My partner will also think about that and might have some suggestions or help out. And
or just listen.
Just listen.
Or also just like hugging without it being sexual immediately, right? It's just, I just need a hug now. I don't need to be naked. I think that's something very important.
It's the, do you want to cuddle and more?
Maybe let's see about the more. And I think for me, what I liked in there very much is how to talk about things you don't like in bed. Like how to talk about problems, sexual problems. Like, I don't know, he has an example in there of like, I don't like how he kisses me, you know, I don't like it. And instead of saying to the husband, I don't like how you kiss me, which is very painful. And I think he says many times how vulnerable the husband, especially the men, are when it comes to sexuality. You have to be very careful. And I heard that from many men. It's like, if you're not feeling like it, don't say it during sex. Just do it as early on as possible. If you think it's not going to happen, it could be that it's not going to happen. And so instead of saying like, I don't like how you kiss me, you could say, oh, you know what I like to try out? I wonder how it would be if you would do this and that. And let's see what happens. So rather talking about the thing that you would want him or her to do, to persuade the other or make it more exciting, rather than something like, okay, we have to talk about sex now. And we have to talk about the problems that we have, you know. I think it's very quickly very painful, and it's going to stick in each other's heads for a long time.
Yeah.
Even if it's just something that it wasn't just a proper thought, and it's like, oh, what is actually I think I said that one time very much in the beginning. It's like, what is the size of a usual penis? And I was like, oh, that was just a biological question, you know? And he was like, why are you asking? And it's nothing to do with him, nothing. And immediately it was this conversation for quite a while that we had to be like, no, it has nothing to do with you. Oh my God.
I'm good on that.
I study physiotherapy. I have like a biological interest in this, but it had nothing to do with it. And so I think, yeah, even if it's something you just mention, it can hurt for a very long time. Or it can make the other think. So he very much talks about very practically, how do you talk about this? How could you word yourself?
Or for you, I think when we were having this, I mean, in Brazil, there's like this cultural background of it's actually much more easy to see people kissing or being intimate outside, you know, just in streets or in a park, not in the streets, but in a park, or people just being more touchy with each other. And I think as soon as we were in Brazil, for you was a difficulty to just be more affectionate or be more touchy with each other. And I felt like, oh yeah, I wanted to be close as well. Just like I felt I don't know, be more free as a couple. I think I had that need. I didn't know that I had that need, but for you was a challenge to get into that in the beginning, right? So,
yeah. Which comes back to the rule book as well, which is also a cultural rule book. It's like, or in my family, it's like not as touchy and kissy outside of their home and their environment. And Brazilians, they just touch each other all the time, like super touchy culture. And now I notice how that changed. I'm more free with that because I know, like, he's free with that, and who cares, you know?
That's interesting. Like, I'm full Austrian, but this half American, half German. And I mean, in your family, they were never had this kind of open physical touch, right?
Mom and my dad, they would never show affection.
Really? Yeah.
I mean,
but also
like maybe holding holding hands, or kind of on the arms.
Yeah,
or
like
something.
that maybe. Yeah.
More like that. My my parents, maybe a little. Dad likes to touch my mom. I like kind of being with her and trying to run after her and give her a kiss. My mom is like, no, leave me alone. But for me, it was always kind of more natural, kind of with the physical touch, like hugging or stuff. And I noticed that maybe we're really childlike hearted. I like to say, not childish, but childlike hearted. So we usually sometimes forget that we're not at home. And then I was like, oh, actually, we should maybe behave a little bit more. Especially when there are second-gen singles who kind of, okay, maybe we stop that. This is not appropriate. So it's that others don't feel uncomfortable. I feel like kind of, okay, certain things are, I mean, being not too touchy for others that maybe are not used to it. And so I was like, okay, maybe we have to stop that.
Every couple is different. With some, they seem super touchy and lovey-dovey all the time, and others, they're more like friends. You wouldn't even notice that they're a couple.
Right.
It just has to work between the couple, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So we understand now that the book is very practical in helping couples to talk about their sexual preferences, their boundaries, their rule books. What about, or have you noticed any change in your spiritual or emotional lives between you two as a couple, but also individually? Was there something in the book that made you think about things differently, emotionally or spiritually?
Not just the physical part.
I think a huge part is that sex is not just sex. Like, it is not just physical. And how you are as a couple spiritually affects very much how you are physically. Every time where we felt very distant with each other, it's just, I think it's different for every couple. It really helped me to come close as well to him on a deeper level. Sometimes we needed sex to feel that connection again, to talk about stuff. For that, at least, was something for me. I noticed also how I found it very, if that connection was there through like praying together and doing conditions together, I felt more attracted to him, and vice versa. So I felt like there was this link between the spiritual and the physical, and my connection with God and him very much. Yeah.
I think really practically speaking, when we pray together, but loudly and in a way, not loudly like screaming, but like that we heard each other praying.
Yeah.
And you had, I don't know, more of a conversation feel to it, that we were talking to each other and also talking to God. And I think that really helped on our spirituality, like for every topic, not only intimacy related, but I think that really helped with other things as well. That it just felt a bit unclear, or what were we thinking on that day, or what is going on right now. I think it really helped also to, I don't know, ignite or like jumpstart this conversation afterwards. So I think that I don't know if that's a part in the book itself, if it's mentioned, but it was something that I noticed that it really opened up many times our conversation and our relationship and intimacy.
I think a huge part for me was how much this book jump started talking about sex in a holy environment. It was basically really, we had the blessing. I flew to Brazil, and then we talked about this book and about everything before we had sex. And so because of that, it was kind of, I felt like dragging it out of that dirty feeling and maybe this taboo thing of like, can we talk about this? How do we talk about this? Into, oh, this is holy. You are supposed to talk about this. Maybe even talk about this more than you do it in the first times. And then after you talked about it many times and you have these chapters and you're like, Dr. Leman said this. What is your thought on that? And then it just really made it holy, and it connected it to God to read about this.
Yeah, I think something that I just noticed was, I think from my perspective and my background, I had like a past where I actually had dated before the blessing and the matching. And I think coming from that as a background, it really helped me see from her perspective and what is actually what I would want to keep as a standard in our relationship after that. I think that helped me on that thought-provoking as well. I think it really put my mind into, oh, how is she going to experience some things when we do it the first time, for example.
And upholding the standard is harder, is getting harder. And I think also I feel being honest with each other is not getting easier with time. I sometimes feel it gets even harder with time because you know each other so well. And then being honest in a sexual way, not like watching porn if you're far away from each other. We still have sometimes long distance in between. And that honoring that commitment, I think connecting it to the vertical, it stays very important with time. Many are very motivated in the beginning, and then it's just like, and maybe then you're not as you don't feel as much desire anymore, and maybe you start to see other people that are very beautiful and pretty. I think especially then I don't know, I didn't reach that point yet. We both didn't reach that point yet, but it can come where you're attracted to somebody else. And I think then that spiritual side, it kicks in. It must kick in. And that commitment and that promise that you made must be more important.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I really appreciate Sebastian for that. That it was maybe more in the beginning. Now it feels like more that we both do it. But when I was working as an executive assistant in a consulting company, that was really, really stressful. And so I had a lot, like I was actually almost close to a burnout almost. And it was really difficult, like coming home and then kind of having this connection or looking for this connection, because I was like, I was so overwhelmed by all the information. I unfortunately really brought home all that was going on, and I was even dreaming about the job. So it's so annoying that when you sleep, not even then, I had my quiet from my job. So it was for me really difficult to work on intentionally on our connection or our relationship. And then Basti was really kind of, let's do something together. Let's talk about, like, let's do maybe a course, or let's read a book together, or something. Take a walk. Like we love to go on walks. Kind of. There's this book called Walk the Blues Away, and where things going in motion, and then we can just brabble and kind of unload as you like to do. And after I quit my job and start now to work for High Noon, sure, there is more stress than, not more stress than before, but
other kinds of
other things. But I still have the mind on, okay, I notice we kind of spent the whole day apart. He's in his man cave where he works with his wood, and I'm up here working with the flowers or other stuff. And I noticed, the whole Saturday went by and we didn't do anything together. Let's talk. Hey, what was there? Tell me what you did and share what you have done with us, so that the connection comes again. And I remember that sometimes, especially at the beginning, when in our relationships, we sometimes were watching these movies, and where they had so many problems because they didn't communicate. And I was like, I'm so glad that we're not that kind of couple. That let's just talk about stuff. When something comes up, I just say that was messed up. I didn't like that. We learned to communicate maybe more in a nicer way, rather than kind of accusing, than using my message, or then he likes to correct me. Sometimes I guess there's something from my family kind of to just say.
What's an example?
An example. Oh gosh, I just know that you correct me, that you would say, could say it like this way or in that way.
But then you always do. Which is
nice. I do. Yeah. And then now I'm usually, wait, first think and then say. Like not this out of impulse.
But yeah, anyways.
So how, after a long distance and then now living together, how can you see the difference in your intimacy than it was in the beginning than now?
Good question. I have to think about that. I think it definitely improved. Like we got better at it. Yeah. I don't know if it had to do with the time where we were apart from each other in a long distance relationship, but to some degree, I can say that like that long distance made us talk more about things.
Yeah.
I think we because we didn't have the physical aspect of it, we were like concentrating and preparing for each other in that sense. I mean, also creating like our rule book, creating a couple of fantasies. But I think it really gave me that perspective of, well, I think now we can get to know each other in another level. And then when we are together, that we can take things to like the physical layer of it, like the physical part of it. But I think definitely we were learning with time what worked for each other and what worked for me, what worked for Maike. And I think the sexuality over this 5 years, I can pretty much say with confidence that we got better. As I think it was really improving, not like, like a line directly up. Like you have better phases and worse phases, just in intimacy in general. I think when we were, especially, I can say that specifically in my case, when I came to Germany first, I think there was this emotional and cultural shock. Which I of course, I knew that it was going to happen, but I think I wasn't prepared for the real thing. I think when it happens, it happens, and you feel it different. So I think until I was confident and feeling like myself again in Germany, it took some time. I cannot say if that impacted our intimacy, but I can say that impacted like my emotional state, I would say, and I think that for sure led to other things as well. But in that sense, really having the other aspects in life, like the job or community and friends and languages specifically as well, like feeling that you're able person, I think it really helped me just in general, not only with intimacy, but I think intimacy was also like a result from that. Yeah. I think after a while we got much better at it.
I mean, for me, it was just moving to Germany, but still, it's Austrian to Bavaria. Is it still going somewhere else where you don't know anybody and maybe a few people, but like going to a new place and then becoming comfortable as well and feeling home as well.
But we can relate, I think, to the point that you made when you had a long distance relationship. You had to talk, like talking was the only medium where you could be close to each other, really. And I remember how we really grew together when talking about our struggles, let's say with masturbation during our when we were still in the matching process. That really brought us together. And we missed, sometimes we talk about it now because it's been 5 years and we just live our lives now. And sometimes I look back and I think, it was so crazy. Actually, we talked so much. We thought we looked at couples that don't talk so much anymore. They like live their lives, and I was like judging them, like how can they just not see this amazing gift?
My sister made a really funny comment one time because that was just like shortly after we moved together. And then she was asking, what are you doing usually? And in the evenings, I said, usually we just talk the whole time. And she was like, oh yeah, that's in the beginning.
Yeah.
I was like, no, that will not change, but it did.
But I think it's good also to allow each other the time as well, right? I think now in 5 years of relationship, like we have other challenges. We know each other. We don't know each other like 100% to like every degree. I don't think I know myself 100%. I cannot expect that from her as well. So, but I feel like now we are more relaxed with like how we behave with each other. I think I take your period time more chill. I don't get so offended when like something comes my way. Yeah, and at the same time, I think you have more grace when I do some, I don't know, something that annoys you as well. Yeah, I think we to that degree, I think we got also better. I think it's extra intimacy, but it leads to it as well. It's just understanding each other better and being okay with each other, and just I think just understanding, just listening to it and being okay. I know my wife. I know that like right now she's going through something, or right now she's in a very good mood, or I can notice when there's things that you don't notice about yourself that I actually am able to tell. Oh, no, she's she's really happy with this one job. She's really happy with this one place, and she doesn't feel like it, but I know that she feels good about it. And I think that's something that it evolved with time as well, like in the emotional part of it. Yeah, it definitely got better as well. I hope so. I don't know. Like, you have to confirm.
Definitely did. I mean, right now we're surrounded by many couples.
Maike shares that they're surrounded by many couples that separate right now.
And I also in my family as well. And so to see that and why it happened, many times it had to do with sexual intimacy, with intimacy in general, with seeing each other, with communication, with all of these things that Hainun talks about all the time, right? It's those simple things that feel so easy in the beginning. And I still feel it will be relevant for a long time. I think you maybe become comfortable because you're like, oh, we're fine. But I don't know, like the relationships that break up right now, they are together 15, 20 years. And I've been just more aware that it needs constant effort.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I heard often that is like you have to like conquer your wife every day, basically. It's like it's an ongoing effort.
Really, like today it was like that. I was annoyed at Henrique twice today, and I knew that it's my hormones, and I think just because I was like, please have some grace with me. I know it's my hormones, and I know myself. He was taking it more lightly and could just hug me. I'm not sure if he was capable to do this 3 years back. I think now it's just we just know.
Yeah, that's really beautiful when you grow as an individual and then as a couple as well, and to understand each other, and then also when the outburst to understand it hasn't had nothing to do with me, something bothers the other person, knowing that, and then having, as you said, the grace for each other to love the whole person, not despite despite their whatever, but I love the whole person, with the corners, with everything. And this is really beautiful.
Yeah, really well said. Yeah, something that I felt like also, I don't know, that it really came maybe because of those relationships that were like we noticed that weren't going well. I kind of preemptively went into a spiral of like psychological content or like couples therapy on the internet.
Yeah,
it really helped open up conversations of another level. That's something like that just came this year. So I can mention that of like development of 5 years. It just came to me this year that we talked about. I don't know how we would deal with each other in like conflict, or how we would deal with each other in money, like money topics, and how we would deal with each other in love topics, and when we are not feeling loved, and how to bring up that in the conversation. I feel like it just really helped seeing other people's perspective on it. But I didn't notice until this year that it was something that was interesting to me. So I think that also comes with time, with a mate, with maturity on it. Yeah.
Seems like today wasn't the last time we guys have you on the podcast.
Wow, time passed so quickly. Wow, that was such a nice conversation about, oh my gosh, so many different kind of things. So I'm guessing for the book now, you would definitely recommend to read it before having sex, and before having, like, in the 40 days, basically.
Yeah.
To get somewhere with the energy that comes up. Because there is the excitement. But I also see that it has value if you are already in your journey of your sexual relationship, because we bought the audiobook and we have listened in a little bit. And I remember there was this one part where I realized that I started to ask him what he would actually like for me to do for him in our bedroom. And then I was starting more kind of, let's say I start to understand that what are your needs, and not just have to ask what or say what are my needs and kind of pressure him that he fulfills my needs, but also kind of being curious about his needs. And that kind of struck me on, oh yeah, it's not just about me, but it's also about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That was just really interesting. Because often in our world we talk or think so selfish. We often think me, I am. It's about me, and no, it's about us. It's about you as well, and it's for each other.
Yeah, that's a super good point. I think it has to do with developing with each other.
Yeah.
I really wanted to come to the blessing as like this fundament because I felt like I could only learn better about myself and learn faster if I have someone who challenged me about it. You know, if I would be just, I don't know, not that this is also a bad thing or like this is negative, but if you have someone who is very much like you don't have those different reflections about it. And I feel like myself, I'm someone who is always for learning. And that, I think, on having Maike really helped me, I mean, profoundly in many different ways.
Beautiful.
Wow. Thank you for the finishing. Yeah, thank you again for taking such a long time now. So taking the time to talk with us and talk about the book. And I think, Maike, you mentioned you two read the book like 5 times or something.
I did. I'm more the one that reading stuff several times.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's just sometimes, I mean, it was nice to actually read it again. I recommend it to everyone that starts a relationship. Every friend that is going to the blessing, I usually buy it for them. It's on Amazon, it's in German, it's in English, it's in almost every language. And I just think that everyone should read it before having their first time.
Nice, yeah. That actually probably helped us as well a lot to understand one another. And yeah, thank you so much for your time, and hope to definitely see you another time.
Sure, thank you so much for inviting us.
Yes, definitely.
Of course.
Okay, bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao.